This is Gothenburg, and in case you didn't know, it's Sweden's second city and pretty much the country's industrial powerhouse. The place means business. It's the most advanced logistics hub in the region and boasts Scandinavia's biggest port. Stanley Godspeed is Gothenburg is home to two of Sweden's most iconic companies, AstraZeneca and yes, Volvo. Just in case the city's industrial might wasn't enough for you, it's also undergoing a huge multi-billion-dollar transformation that's set to make it the hard-nosed logistic and commercial heart of Northern Europe by 2035. At the center of all is the Gothenburg Citygate Tower, the tallest office building in the Nordic region. But also, so what exactly is going on here, and how has this Swedish city really managed to match blockbuster development with sustainable growth? To really understand what's happening in this city right now, you need to rewind a bit. Around 40 years ago, Gothenburg went through a big change. In the 1980s, the shipbuilding industry that had been vital to its economy's 16th century was in terminal decline. Now, those empty shipyards were soon converted into a sincere park, which helped the city become a high-tech research and development hub that also doubled as a major trading port. Then in 2014, the Gothenburg Development Strategy was announced, a comprehensive plan which would pretty much shape the development of the city for the next 2 decades, and it seems to be working. From 2016 to 2035, over $100 billion is being invested into expanding infrastructure like the city's port and metro system, as well as building some 55,000 new homes. But Sweden has one of the best sustainability records in the world, and Gothenburg is no exception. So how do you maintain that reputation while doing so much construction work? Developed by Skanska, Citygate is a great example of how Gothenburg is managing to balance huge scale with low environmental impact. Despite being the biggest office building in the Nordic region, it's expected to be awarded the highest LEED certification. LEED was set up in the 1990s to recognize buildings constructed to a high environmental standard. Reaching the coveted platinum status is so tough that only around a few thousand buildings in the whole world have ever been awarded. With Citygate, those environmental credentials started right from the design and construction stages. Recycled aluminium was chosen to create the facade, and a high-tech solution was used for one of the most polluting aspects of the build. We started with the concrete, so on the ground foundation, we have cast with this green structure to reduce CO2, carbon dioxide. Now, concrete production accounts for about 8% of all carbon dioxide emissions. But the concrete used at Citygate replaced cement with fly ash, a byproduct of the coal industry which has very similar properties. It's not just the sustainability of this project which is distinctly Swedish. In Sweden, they want to build prefab. They don't cast all the structure because it's most fastest to do prefab. Sweden has long pioneered prefabrication construction, and up to 80% of its housing stock has been built in this way. But it gets cooler than housing because apparently skyscrapers are no exception. The concrete core was the only element of this building to be cast on site. All the other floor slabs, steelwork, and paneling were delivered, and the building was put together like a giant Lego set. Ideal for a small site that's a bit hemmed in by a stadium, fire station, and another site just next door. They're building really fast. All the structure has been in there for 14 months. Amazingly, the team at Skanska assembled the entire structure of Citygate in almost the same amount of time that it took to construct the skyscraper's foundation in the Gothenburg's tough clay soil. Perhaps one of the most impressive feats is that the entire building will be powered by a new solar park that it's connected to just outside Gothenburg. That's right. The largest office building in Sweden will be 100% powered by renewable solar energy. Citygate also set a new nationwide standard for using digital construction tools like Bluebeam Revo. Projects the size of this take some serious organizing, and with so many digital files and messages flying around, it's really important that people can coordinate with their teams and be sure they're looking at the right information. We think they have a 3,000 to 4,000 drawings, and everything is going to be through this design review. When they have all this linked together, it's going to be much easier for all in the project to find what they are searching for. Bluebeam Revo is a cloud-based collaboration tool that makes sharing and coordinating documents easy. It puts the latest information in front of everyone who needs to see it, whether they're in the office, working remotely, on the move, out on the site, or working at the very top of super sustainable Swedish skyscraper, as well as speeding up workflows, reducing stress, and making sure things get built the right way. First time around, there's also the fairly obvious sustainability benefit of doing away with the paper. And it saves a lot of trees that don't need to cut down because they printed out of all these drawings. Now, as impressive as Citygate is, Gothenburg still has a pretty enviable reputation to keep up. But they have seen elsewhere. Big money and major developments don't always turn out the best for the locals. So what is Gothenburg doing differently? Well, right from the start, the Gothenburg development strategy sought to encourage business growth while also specifically keeping livability at the very top of the agenda. So what makes it so good in the first place? They really liked it as a big but slow city, and even in rush hour, it's not that rushed. You also have access to nature. It's equidistant for the people to go swimming in a lake or go out for dinner in a restaurant. You don't have to choose between living in the countryside or the city, rather than allowing growth into large suburbs with long commute times. The city plan calls for key inner city areas to be developed and made denser. At the moment, about 1 in 10 Gothenburgers live around the city center, which is also where 90% of the jobs are. One of the main entrances to the city will be transformed from an impassable motorway into a pedestrian-friendly boulevard, with green space and a new public transport. Yes, I know what you are thinking. If Gothenburg's so great, why don't you just go and live there? Well, you may be relieved to hear that there is in fact a catch to this Nordic nirvana. Housing in Sweden's major city has been a controversial subject for decades. Renting is commonplace in Sweden, and generous protections for tenants keep rents low while helping to provide stable long-term contracts. Some have argued that these generous provisions have actually de-incentivized house builders to construct new homes. The house builders are saying it's not possible to build affordable housing in the city center. And the Housing Association is saying that's not true. It's entirely up for debate. There is a strong need for new houses in the city, and that demand has existed for decades. While housing is an issue, it's nowhere near the chronic levels found elsewhere. Gothenburg is facing pressures similar to many other cities around the world, but it seems to be doing a good job at dealing with them before they get too out of hand. This massive holistic plan was partially triggered when Gothenburg City Council realized it was expecting a rise in population of 150,000 over a period of 2 decades. Compare that to somewhere like Toronto, which is expecting over 2 million people to come to the city in the next 10 years, but doesn't really have a plan to house its existing citizens. While this may not be a complete case of a city having its cake and eating it, it's certainly setting a high bar for others to follow. And it looks like it might remain at the top of those lists for some time to come. And as always, if you enjoyed this video and would like to get more, subscribe our channel and like the video.